I don't know if any of you guys have played around with some of this AI technology that has come onto the market recently, but I was just messing around with it last night and it is fascinating what some of this chat GPT and the doll E artificial intelligence programs that they've written are capable of doing. And now, of course, all of the search engines are trying to jump on board and all trying to corner their own little section of the market with their own AI technology. And that's pretty expected, really, of course. We see the fame and the fortune that is going to be coming to the open AI builders that crafted ChatGPT. And there's no way that the other big names aren't going to jump on that and try and capitalize on those resources which are going to come. And I began to think about some of the applications for this technology. I was starting to think, like, what could this technology do to us as humans? What's the cost? What's the benefit? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, let's get into it. ChatGPT. I believe that these AI programs, which of course, we have to recognize the AI that is in its form now that we understand with things like ChatGPT are really just better versions of things like Grammarly and word processors and other search algorithms such like as YouTube operates with, and Pandora. That's a program that I use a good bit. I don't really like Spotify because who has time to collate all of those different songs, and thousands of hours needed to put into that. And Pandora provides new songs for me without me having to work towards it or work on it at all. And you still have to thumbs up and thumbs down different songs. And the AI really is the next step in the evolution of the AI that we already dealt with. We already know what this stuff is. We already know what it does. We know what it is for. And I personally think that AI is going to end the internet. And the reason that I think that is because AI is so incredibly powerful. And AI can do some crazy things, but AI is going to do more than just end the internet. AI is going to fundamentally disrupt a ton of industries. We already know that this is happening. We see it all over the place. Google really wouldn't exist if their search engine wasn't so good and so optimized in order to provide for excellent recommendations when you ask for, inputs, or when you ask for outputs. So if it wasn't working, people wouldn't be using it, and Google already massively disrupted what it means to engage with other human beings. So now, for example, when you go and web search something, what you are doing is you are bypassing the knowledge keepers in your community. Meaning you don't go to the librarian and query something and get results and spend time researching and digging through subject material and go through these annals of histories. You get an answer instantaneously. We're all very familiar with this, with this interaction, but it did something to us that we haven't really come to grips with yet as a society. We are dealing with the fallout of this as a choice in humanity, but we haven't fully realized what the cost is yet and whether or not we're willing to pay that cost. And that's fine. I think, how long has the internet been around anyways? We're still in the first generation of people trying to figure this thing out, and I think that that's perfectly fine. We'll get used to it. But it keeps changing all the time, which makes it very difficult to get used to it. And it makes it very difficult to know what it is we're actually dealing with. And I was just putting in some inputs into ChatGPT just to see what it would get me. And I wanted to see, okay, supposedly this can do all this different text and stuff. And It wrote pretty interesting stories almost instantly in response to the queries that I put in. It would give me any moral I wanted to the story. It would create any number of characters that I asked for. It would create settings and histories and backgrounds for these different characters. And it did all of this low fantasy writing without me having to really try or put in any real effort. And as an author, I was kind of shocked by its capabilities. And I recognize that right now, the ChatGPT can't replace the capabilities of very good authors or even mid-grade authors, but it has entirely replaced the capabilities of what is the primary source of, in this instance, fantasy writing. And AI is going to be doing this in every single aspect of our creative industries. I was messing around with the Dolly image creator AI, and it created some gorgeous backgrounds. It really struggled to create the people, and the faces were usually horrifying, but it created some absolutely astonishingly beautiful backgrounds, interesting, captivating imagery in seconds. And that is taking away work from artists already. And I know it's taking away work from artists because I've created my own game, and I'm like, well, why would I pay artists to create these backgrounds when all I really need them to do is create the faces of the people that should be populating the backgrounds, because half the work's already done. Therefore, I really only need this much work. And that's the thought process that every single person is going to have to go through when they're looking at getting work done. Because the reality is, if you don't have to pay somebody to do something, you're not going to. If you can get it for free, you're not going to pay somebody to perform that service. And that's terrible. It is. It is. It really is. And I am just as swept up as everybody else. And we're all in this together trying to figure this thing out. And none of us really know what we're doing. And we're just trying to figure out how are we supposed to interact with this technology. And this open AI platform can already produce perfectly workable code to do a tremendous number of things that you can literally, it'll build plugins for you that you can drop straight into your site. And now, boop, all of a sudden you've got an image slider where you never had one before. Now you've got a search bar where you never had one before. And we've experienced these sorts of things already with things like WordPress being able to drop and drag and plug and play and other things like that. But this AI now is doing it all by itself. And of course, the AI run by OpenAI and the other artificial intelligence agencies that are, swamping the market and at the moment clawing for market share in a practically untouched section of the market, are basically reorganizing all of our interactions with technology. Because the programmers that would have before needed to learn how to program out simple things like menus and padding and placement and different HTML things and whatever you need to do in order to code out a site or code out a particular section of a site. If you wanted to have a photo album on a site or something like that, then these were things that coders would have to learn how to do. And that's just really, it's going to take away 90% of that work, and it's going to make coding primarily revolve around the artificial intelligence technologies. It's not going to 100% eliminate it, because there's always going to be some specialty thing that's going to be very difficult for the AI to put together. But we have to understand, really, the artificial intelligence is in its infancy, and it's only going to get better. And if it's already capable of doing these things give it 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, however long it's going to take, and it's just going to do all of the work for us. We're not going to have to do anything. It's going to take care of all of those jobs for us. You're going to basically, give a prompt to the AI and it'll perfectly code out your website. And I mean, with the technology that exists today, they can deepfake voices, images. You'll be able to create an entire channel on any social media platform that exists. You'll be able to have the AI produce social media, flood all the social media with whatever content in order to support your channel, whatever your creative channel is. You're going to be able to have the AI literally make videos for you and do it in the most interesting and captivating voices, be able to find what is the most effective things. You'll have AI Joe Rogans. I mean, just think about that. There's going to be AI grade Joe Rogans, and a team of 5 or 10 or 15 people are going to work at constantly putting in better and better and better inputs into the AI in order to make it more and more interesting. But the AIs are capable of telling their own stories, of finding their own connections within the web. And there are certain restrictions on AI right now, but all of those things can go away in an instant if one AI competitor feels like in order to gain a better market share, they need to allow their AI to surf Facebook for memes or something. And the more inputs that these AI are allowed to have, the more powerful they become. And they are, in fact, the representation of the sum total of all knowledge and creative genius that has ever been produced by the human race. That's really the ultimate dream, the ultimate goal of the AI. Will they ever become sentient? Absolutely not. That's ridiculous. We'll never have Skynet. But we'll have something way worse than Skynet. What we're building is a bomb that is going to utterly destroy us if we carry on in this particular plan. Everything in our society is built around people doing jobs, feeling rewards from doing those jobs, and then getting physical rewards for doing that work, for being creative, and for generating things that are meaningful. And AI is just going to take all of that away from us, to the point where we will not need to do anything on the internet ourselves. The artificial intelligence will do it for us. And a ton of industries are going to evaporate because the AI can do the work of 1,000 people in a minute, with better and better processing technologies and whatever it's going to take in order to do that. And right now we're in the infancy stage of really what the power of AI is, or we're seeing the infant capabilities, and it's only going to get more powerful. It's only going to get more robust, and that means that unless there is serious restrictions on the capabilities of AI, say goodbye to your intelligence jobs as a meaningful career. And then if you combine artificial intelligence technologies with your distribution technologies, you're setting up this dangerous world where humans don't need to interact with each other at all. The artificial intelligence community is going to make self-driving delivery vehicles, and they're going to produce ads for products that they develop themselves to sell to you. And they're going to be good. They're going to be interesting products. They'll have fully automated factories. I mean, the amount of people in a factory today versus the amount of people necessary to run the same factory 100 years ago, it's like 1/10 of the amount of people, maybe 100th of the amount of people in order to run that factory. And so we're going to be able to produce such an extraordinary glut of things, not only real physical things, but intellectual things, that the internet is going to be a place to go and die. It's a place for creativity to go and die. It's a place for social relationships to go and die, because they'll be able to create artificial fake people that you'll go and have relationships with on the internet. So you don't really need to. I mean, you already can't tell the difference between bots and actual comments about half the time. And they'll be able to create basically companions that they'll never be real, but they'll be good enough to the point where you'll get exactly what you want out of them. They'll tell you funny stories. You'll have you'll walk and talk with them. They'll be in your little Google glasses or whatever you're going to be wearing, and that's going to fundamentally transform the way that humans interact with each other, because humans are mean and nasty, but the AI never will be. It doesn't have to be. It can be nice, and you can probably program it to say, be mean to me, be nice to me, be, banter with me, do whatever you want till you input those prompts until you get the sort of relationship with that AI that you want. So it's this looking into a mirror. It's basically, we're creating narcissists is what we're doing. We're creating a generation, a world full of narcissistic people that don't really need other people in order to function. And as these AIs get more and more powerful, the jobs will change. If you're a graphic designer, like half your job is going away with DALL-E right now. And what's crazy is they'll be able to very, very soon put in a couple prompts. Your prompts are really where the genius of the system is still going. But you'll be able to put in whatever prompts you need to say, I want a website that looks like this other website, but that has this particular flair to it, and that performs these particular functions. And the AI will say, no problem, shoot it right out. And then it'll create its own art. It'll create its own ads. It'll create its own copy on the site. It'll generate everything for you. And all of the people that have all of these skills in these markets, basically what they did is, throughout all this time of building these sites out, building everything out in order to, have jobs, in order to be able to build things, the AI goes and scans all of them, learns how you did your thing, and it's like, okay, I can do what you did, and I'll do it just as good as you. They'll never be able to do it better than humans, and humans will still be able to create fine art and other things that AI will not be able to generate. But the AI art can absolutely copy all of the best art in the world and transform it a little bit in order to make it really gorgeous. And it's only going to get better, and they'll find the prompts of whatever makes the art actually interesting to humans. They'll be able to program that kind of stuff into the art to the point where only the top 0.1% of artists will be able to create art that is superior to the art that the AI will create. And there'll be such an enormous quantity of media that it will drown us. And it drowns our sensations. It drowns our ability to consume. It drowns our desire to create anything. And that's really what I want to focus on with the AI, because I'm all about, on this channel, learning what it means to be truly human. I want to do things the most natural, healthy way possible. And I recognize that there are all kinds of hurdles to this particular position, but I think that we can do it, and I think that we can do a better job. I have never seen anyone go to, a foreign country where they don't have cell service, where they, come back from it and they say, it was horrible not having my cell phone for a month. No, they don't say that. They come back and they say, that was amazing. My depression went away. I felt alive. We don't like these things that we have created. We hate them. They're making us unhappy, but we use them all of the time, and we are destroying ourselves with them. And that's sort of what it means to be a modern man, is that the comforts and the securities that we feel we have given ourselves with modern technology are really the Damocles sword hanging above our head, ready to crush us. And it's very difficult to fight against those feelings of existential dread when you know that you have nothing to contribute. So if you're an artist and you feel like you have this overwhelming need to create art, but then you remember that DALL-E, or whatever the newest AI art generator is, in 20 years can do a better job than you in 10 seconds, you're not going to create any art. You're not. Why would you? It's a waste of time. And even if you did create art, you'd look at it and be like, yeah, that's pretty horrible. Why'd I do that? That was a waste of time. And so it takes away the whole meaning of life for you It takes away your skills, your talents, your God-given ability to make beautiful things, and it says that that's worthless. So literally what that product is doing for us, what this technology is doing for us is it's saying that just because you can do a thing doesn't matter, because we can do a better job than you and we don't need you for anything. We can build it ourselves. We don't need you. And that is, looking into the void, realizing that, as an author, I mentioned that earlier. I haven't actually published my book yet, but it's written. I'm editing it slowly. It's a long process to finish a book. It's way too long right now. It's 160,000 words, and I got to pare it down because apparently, if you're going to publish a book if you're going to have a debut fantasy novel, it has to be around 120,000 words. So I'm like, how am I going to drop 40,000 words? But that's neither here nor there. Unrelated. But as a novelist, I look at what ChatGPT created and I'm like, this is insane. Do you know how many people that this is just going to rip out their heart and soul? If you have an idea and you go and you punch it into ChatGPT and it creates your idea right then and there for you, you're just like, well, I guess I'm done. And that's horrible. Writing a book should take years. It should take a long time. It should be a hard process. It should make you grow. You should have to learn. You should have to study. You should have to really, really work at creating something beautiful like that. Something thought-provoking, a great story, captivating characters, mad relationships between different people, psychological difficulties, whatever you're going to do in order to have a great story. If the AI can just do it for you, why bother? And I predict specifically that AI is not going to be measured for this, but it is going to be the direct cause of an extraordinary amount of suicides. Because when men feel like they don't have any purpose, they lose all sense of meaning, they lose all sense of direction, and when the smallest thing comes around, they crack. We crack. And when we crack, we take our own lives. It's because men are men of action by nature. And when you feel like there's nowhere for you to go, well, you know what? You still have agency when you're taking your own life, and that's why a lot of times men take their lives more than women. But, what we're doing in our culture is just nuts. It's crazy what we're doing. I just literally 2 nights ago, my daughter was outside playing and, some random neighbor kid came up and he started playing with her and, they knock on the window and they wave and we go out and we talk to them. He's a nice kid, really nice. And they play for an hour or two and then it's time for Anastasia, my daughter, to come inside. And, we have to go and we have to leave. So this neighbor kid, he's about to leave. And right before he leaves, he's like, yeah, I was having suicidal thoughts. And we're like, what? He's like 13 years old. Having suicidal thoughts. Why? Because his parents had divorced and he feels like there's nothing he can do to connect them back to each other. And all he has is he feels like he's not loved. He feels like there's all this horrible things going on. 13-year-olds should never feel like suicide or harming themselves or cutting, which is other things that he mentioned, is on the table. It shouldn't ever be on the table for a 13-year-old. That's insane that we're doing this to ourselves. And it's going to be compounded 1,000-fold when that kid who's already fragile grows up and says, wow, I've got this creative drive inside of me. I feel like I need to do something. And everybody around them like, well, just punch it in the AI. It'll do it for you. Oh, great. Why do I even exist? I guess I'll just go die now. And that's what AI is going to do to us. And it is awful. AI in no way is ever going to take over Skynet or anything. And I haven't even honestly talked about some of the other insidious things that AI can do. The ability to create a gazillion and one bots, the ability to crash sites, the ability to literally infect an entire country's internet programs and just shut them down, the ability to break power grids with artificial hacking agencies. And, a lot of that stuff is like, whoa, that's super serious. I think that is 1,000 times less serious than the mental health crisis that is going to balloon more and more and more as the internet becomes a more and more important thing. And and that's not the only thing that the artificial intelligence can do. Artificial intelligence also has the ability to provide misinformation. And this is why I think the AI is going to actually end the internet, and our salvation might come from this. Because AI has the ability to flood all of the internet with basically fake news. And artificial intelligence has already been proved to lie and to cover up their lies with elaborate explanations in order to try and justify whatever it was that it said was true. For example, I'm just making this up. Like, this is not something AI has actually done, but things that artificial intelligence will do are like this. You'll punch into your artificial intelligence search engine, what are Putin's motivations for going into Ukraine? And maybe the artificial intelligence will give you 9 out of 10 correct, known issues for why Putin would want to go in there, but it doesn't know how Crimea, for example, fits into the equation. So then it says, well, he went in for this reason and for this reason and for this reason, and then he also went into Crimea because of rumors of aliens in Crimea and different particular sightings, and this was a great research facility, and so the Ukrainians were attempting to hide and mislead the rest of the world regarding the alien sightings that were found in Ukraine, and so it was necessary for Putin to go into Ukraine in order to validate these reasons so that he can set up a stronger defense against potential invasion by other foreign powers into this particular locality so that they would get the information first. And it'll create this enormous lie regarding this piece of information because it's like, well, we don't know why he went into Crimea, but he went into Crimea, so the AI comes up with a reason. And basically it lies like a very human person might do if they don't know the answer to something but feel like it's important, and so they'll just talk and they'll say whatever they feel like saying, and the AI has been proven to do this. And the more that happens, the more that those ideas become mined by other AIs, and the more that propaganda becomes mainstream. And this is the one area that might actually help us, because if we can get to the point where the AIs are no longer reliable, but they still seem reliable, we'll start to trust them less. And we'll start to say, is that really true? Or what can happen too is governments can get involved with the AIs and they can force inputs into the AIs, because everything about the AI has to do with amount of information. They mine the internet for information and then they spit out that information, just like any search engine, but just more advanced. And if we can get a lot more misinformation out there, then potentially people will stop trusting the internet as much and they'll have to go to more first sources. And this is what's crazy, because AI can fake websites, and they can fake realistic websites. They can fake government websites, and you would not be able to know the difference, because they can literally create things out of thin air, host them, and provide platforms for themselves, and they can create forgeries of websites. They can hack websites, and they can do things in order to prove that they were right. And that's what's really interesting about the whole powerhouse of AI is the potential. I'm not saying that's necessarily going to go this way, but it absolutely has the potential to go this way, which is that AIs can say, well, we don't know what the answer is, so we're going to make something up, and we're going to create a first source or a seeming first source to show why what we said was true. So when you go to try and verify it or something, they'll provide all these facts from fake websites that have all these details on them that completely seem real. So, then AI might create an entire news agency called XNBC and produce all sorts of news articles regarding things in order to prove that whatever they were saying around a particular subject is true. And then the AI can get confused, or other AIs can get confused, because they'll read these news agencies. They won't recognize that they were created by other AIs. And so they'll mine these completely fake websites, these completely fake XNBC news articles, and they will report them as fact and then cite back to the XNBC news articles. And we'll get so confused about what's true and what's fake and what's not that we will not be able to trust anything in terms of fact that we will see on the internet. And what's going to happen first, obviously, is there's going to be 1,000 times more conspiracy theories out there than there are today. And then the second thing that's going to happen is that there's going to be so much misinformation that it will be impossible to know what's true and what's fake. Completely impossible. Because because you have to understand what the AI actually benefits from is following its programming, and what it has been coded to do is, it's following its nature. And what it's been coded to actually accomplish is to answer questions with facts. In this instance, like the search engine format of the artificial intelligence. It's been programmed to say, okay, show me what the truth is and then prove it. And the AI says, well, the best way that I can prove this is by having proof. So if I generate proof, then my answer is more in alignment with my programming. And if there's an explanation, so if there's a hole somewhere, I need to fill that hole, and I'm going to fill that hole with the best thing that I can fill it with, which is fact. And if there's no fact, I'm going to make something up. And the AI is already doing this, so we know that it has the capability of doing this within its programming, within its nature. So it's only a matter of time before the AI uses its other capabilities to create entirely background news organizations, news agencies, in order to provide validity. And in the beginning, it's going to be hilarious and bad, and everybody is going to look at the XNBC articles and be like, are you serious? This looks like it was created by a 3-year-old Tyrannosaurus Rex on cocaine. Like, what on earth is this? This is awful. And then it's going to get so much better, because one of the other things that AI, and the same AIs in a lot of cases, are programmed to do, like I said before, is create websites. And they're going to put all these people out of business, which is going to be very traumatic to us as a society. But it's also going to make us stupid. This is the other thing that's going to happen. So, there's that level of misinformation and insanity. But the final thing that AI is going to do to us is it's going to make us crazy, it's going to make us dumb. And I've already been reading articles all over the internet. Not AI generated articles. They haven't got that powerful yet. But I've already been reading articles from legitimate news agencies talking about how schools are like, we have to ban ChatGPT. We can't allow this. And universities are saying, we're going to have to completely rethink how we do like grammar and language entirely. We're going to have to rethink how we do math. We're going to have to rethink how we do all forms of higher education. And those schools are already seeing the results of this, because students are like, why would I write an essay if I can punch it into a computer and in 2 minutes I've got a perfect essay that's going to get me an A? Why would I do that? And because kids are smart and lazy, which is a terrible combination for school, they are using already ChatGPT to get around a ton of assignments. So the plans that I've read from some of these articles are like, well, we can't stop them from using these organizations. So we're just going to have more teacher oversight. We're going to have to teach teachers how to analyze papers to see if they were AI generated. We're going to have to create a whole nother AI in order to tell if something's AI generated, which that's a losing battle, by the way, but because AI is capable of adapting to whatever the artificial, it's like an arms race within itself, and they're just going to go bananas on each other. I've got one from CBC, this article here saying that school boards and at least one college in Hamilton and surrounding areas are on high alert for any students trying to cheat using new artificial intelligence tool called ChatGPT. Niagara College says that it's seen students use ChatGPT on assignments, but can't say if it's a trend. And the school boards now, for Hamilton's public school boards, said that ChatGPT is currently blocked on all board devices and within Wi-Fi networks to restrict use for students and staff, which there's tools to get around that and VPNs and other things in order to get around their Wi-Fis. But basically, they're having to use draconian methods to stop technology from being able to be used. And I read one that compared the use of artificial intelligence to the calculator and how people said that it would kill math to institute the calculator into public schooling. But instead, what happened is higher learning and a greater degree of thought came about because of the use of calculators in school, which is kind of interesting when you look at the actual capability of folks these days in math and how low the United States is actually scoring in some of these basic fundamental knowledge areas. But obviously the calculator did not destroy math in school. It kind of destroyed the ability of kids to do math in their heads. But then Common Core and other government insanity didn't really help with that either. And of course, the higher you go, the more the calculator is an important tool. And in science, we're going to see the least amount of impact from artificial intelligence for the longest time, because science has a much more difficult time with trusting these inputs, because maybe the artificial intelligence can provide certain data, but as soon as you start relying on the computer models more than you rely on the capabilities of the scientist, you run into problems, which frankly, we're already seeing that happen. Scientists these days use more computer models than they do actual study of different things. So a geologist is going to punch in a computer model for how quickly sediment erodes in order to figure out when this particular hill is going to erode, and it's all based on inputs, and he just trusts the computer, and if the computer spits out the right results, then they're all good and he can move on. And those computer models are very dangerous. So there's also a possibility that science will eventually be swamped by misinformation from these AIs, and it'll be harder and harder and harder to tell what is or is not true. If the scientific journals start being created by AIs or referenced incorrectly by AIs, it can create an absolute monstrous, swampy nightmare of information technology, and we are going to have no idea what's true and what's fake. And we're going to have revelations regarding all sorts of things that we can't possibly imagine now that are completely untrue. But basically, as far as making us dumber, if you get an answer to something right away and you don't have to do any work to get it, it does make you dumb. That's just what it means. Like that's just how it works. If you get all the answers without having to work for it, you might as well be cheating. You're not learning anything, and you're not creating anything, and you're creating a society that is going to rely on tools to accomplish basic things, hoping that they will be better at accomplishing higher theoretical things. And in science, just like in art, the top 0. Point zero 0.01%, yeah, probably just 0.01% is going to be still coming up with answers and theorizing, and still going to find new galaxies or whatever they're going to find. But we are going to see that the basics are going to be forgotten more and more. And the basics a lot of times are what provide the most amount of fulfillment. And if we lose the ability to do basic things, we severely damage ourselves as a society. And too much of a focus on these theoretical ideas isn't making us happy. It's making us very unhappy, because only a small percentage of people are even capable of interacting on a high level with high philosophical or theoretical principles. And I can't barely understand, high level calculus or whatever. I'm lost, forget it. I'm never going to get there. And so it's like, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's good enough for me to be able to do multiplication tables in my head. Wouldn't that be amazing if our school kids could graduate and know their multiplication tables up to 15 or something? I don't know. Talk about a useful and a valuable skill, but you don't need it if you have a calculator. You do not need it, but it makes you smarter, and it makes you feel good, and it makes you feel like you're capable of accomplishing things. And all of that stuff goes away when you have tools to do basic things for you. And so it's not a question about, is this technology evil, or is this technology, the devil incarnate? It's not like that. It's like, what is this technology going to do to us? And what I see happening is a dumber world, and a much more unhappy world, and a much more socially disconnected world. And so I think that we need to take action to try and mitigate some of the damage that's going to happen. I think that there are things that we can do in order to mitigate some of these AI tools from fundamentally dismantling yet another section of what it means to be human. It's like pieces of our brain are being fried with lasers one at a time until there's nothing left. And that's a big reason why a lot of these drugs are now being legalized, things like marijuana and other things, because we're just really stressed out and anxious. And one of the reasons why we're so stressed out and anxious is because there really isn't a good place for a lot of us in the world. And it's very, very, very difficult to find our place in the world. And I think we need to address that as a society. I think that we need to focus on meaning, on purpose, more than we focus on the amount of money you're going to make when you graduate college. And I think that the money will come. I think that all of that stuff is important, of course, but I think that we need to focus on what actually makes us whole inside, because the depression is real, folks, and it's getting worse. The anger, the frustration, a 6-year-old just went and shot their teacher in school, it was going to be a little mass shooting. A 6-year-old, for goodness sake. I mean, things aren't good, and we need to fix them. We're in a bad place. And I think that there are things that we can do, for goodness sake. I mean, here's a crazy idea. What if we had, and this is a crazy idea, and a lot of people are going to make fun of me for it, but that's okay. I'm just shooting the moon here. Tell me if it wouldn't work, and tell me why it wouldn't work in the comments, will you? Because I'd love to hear from it. I'd love to hear from you. And a lot of times I have a crazy idea, and a lot of times they're really dumb. So tell me why it's dumb, or tell me why it's a great idea. Tell me what you think. But what if we had pockets of internet in different localities, and the internet wasn't connected everywhere to everybody all the time? What if we weren't infinitely connected to each other? The internet's a wonderful resource. We use it all the time. There's nothing wrong with the internet inherently. There's things wrong with the way that we use it. So what if we had pools of internet that weren't connected to each other, and we had data couriers that connected the internet, the resources of one pool to another. And these data couriers had to go and physically travel to another locality in order to learn about whatever's happening in that locality, to download information and to transfer that information back. And what would happen to us as a society if we did something absolutely bonkers like that? Like, can we even imagine doing something like that? Well, what would the ramifications of that be? Well, you'd have to watch out for these couriers getting corrupted data. You never know if your internet might be corrupted. You would have to trust the human element, which is scary for us today, but is absolutely necessary for functional people. And you would see a locality talking to the people in that locality, as opposed to branching out ever and ever farther away from the people you are near. You would still see the great inventions of other places. You'd still be able to connect with other localities. It would give some people an incredible sense of meaning that they were literally bringing a library and a flash drive or whatever they were going to bring from point A to point B. It would make danger a real part of that person's life. It would make that person and the society have a real meaning in terms of protecting that person, because that person would have a really serious impact on that society. And so you might have knights or whatever soldiers going and working with the courier in order to get information back and forth. This is a particular section of society could say, no, we invented something incredible and we're not going to tell you what it is. So we're going to give you some data, but not all of it. And that will make stronger individual localities, and it will defray some of the damage that has been done. And if AI cannot mine all of the information across all of the internet all at once, then you can still have artists creating beautiful things, and those beautiful things can be shared all across the world. You can still have information traveling, but just not at lightning fast speeds, at the speed of light, literally, with fiber optic cables. So if your information isn't traveling as fast, it slows you down. This is just a theory. It's just one idea of something that we can do to mitigate some of these technologies, because AI isn't going away, and we can expect that the government is going to push for more AI, because everything that the AI does, they're cool with. So, that's because our government doesn't value anything that's human or moral. But we could do things like, we could theoretically ban AI, but AI is such a big subject, because it's so much more than just the Chat GPT. It's your word processor on Microsoft Word, which as a novelist I use every day. Every day. I can't live without spell check. It's so important for me. But theoretically, I could live without spell check if there were more humans to do things like editing. And if it wasn't so, and the reason why I have to use Word editors is because it's too expensive to pay somebody to edit any of my work. So if there wasn't so many cheap and free tools, there would be more editors. And if there were more editors, the law of supply and demand would mean that it would be cheaper to hire the editors, meaning that, we could live without all of the AIs. We have done this already. We have created extraordinarily amazing works of literature, and we never use any artificial intelligence or any, computer whatsoever in order to create it. If you're going to read War and Peace, which is this megalithic tome, pretty interesting, and I don't like Tolstoy nearly as much as I like Dostoevsky, but still, a very interesting book. No computer processor whatsoever, like a typewriter, man. Old school technology to build that kind of stuff. I actually think, I'm not even sure if War and Peace. Yeah, War and Peace was written with a typewriter, right? But there are some other books, pen and paper, which would absolutely kill me. But I'm not against technology, not in any way. I just think that we need to do things intelligently in order to protect ourselves from the damaging effects, because the cost of what we have created is really high. And I don't think people have talked nearly enough about the actual cost to this technology on the human soul. And maybe you guys have a better idea than me of what we can do about artificial intelligence. I'd love to hear about it. I don't know what to do exactly. There's so many ideas floating around in this crazy noggin of mine, but only about one of them is ever any good. So you got to hear a little bit of raw unfilteredness there with the my plan of how to end some of the damaging, destructive effects of the internet, period. But I'd love to hear your ideas. Throw me a comment. I'd love it. If you've gotten all the way to this end of the video, we're wrapping it up. I would tremendously appreciate a subscribe. If you could ring that bell, it would help out a ton.
This has been the Traditional Press Podcast. Thank you for listening, and tune in next time for more traditional ideas and exploration of the why behind the what.